الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So we'll be continuing discussing the book Bulugh Maram min Adilat al-Ahkam by Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. So we have been covering concerning matter that relates to Ahkam al-Buyu. So the chapter that discusses concerning different type of business transactions, concerning those one that he as a title regarding the one that we're covering, that he title Bab Shuruti, regarding concerning the shurut of Buyu. Then he mentioned وَمَا نُهِي أَنْهُ minhu, and also those that have been forbidden regarding business transaction. So in continuing this discussion that we'll be discussing concerning the hadith of Ibn Zubair regarding concerning of those things that relates to business transaction that are discussed here regarding the hadith that covers certain matters pertaining to certain type of transaction that are not allowed. Aywa. So read the hadith and then we'll go through the explaining the hadith and the ahkam that can be taken from the hadith.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Hadith number 656 from the book of business transactions. Narrated Abu Zubair radiallahu anhu. I asked Jabir radiallahu anhu about the payment for cats and dogs, and he replied, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned sternly against that, reported by Muslim and Nasa'i, the latter added, except a hunting dog.
So this is the hadith that is mentioned, that as stated here mentioned concerning an Abi Zubair قال سألت جابر عن ثمن السنور والكلب وقال ذات النبي عليه السلام عن ذلك. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned ورواه مسلم والنسائي وزاد إلا كلب سيد. So this concerning hadith is mentioned here as read regarding the hadith of Jabir, where he was asked a question regarding concerning the sale of a certain type of regarding the sale concerning that of or the earnings of that of a sinur that we discuss concerning also al-kalb, and then he mentioned concerning what the Prophet ﷺ has said regarding this matter. So first thing that he mentioned, that we mentioned concerning first, is concerning takhrij of the hadith. So we mentioned concerning, or they mentioned here Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that hadith as they mentioned rawahu Muslim wal Nasa'i. So the hadith have been narrated by Imam Muslim and also An-Nasa'i rahimahullah ta'ala. So as for the hadith regarding concerning that Imam Muslim rahimahullah have narrated the hadith and also Nasa'i, but also with the narration that is stated by Imam Nasa'i, that there's an extra wording we mention illa kalb sayd. So it concern that kalb, but he kind of somewhat make some type of stipulation that regarding concern that kalb is what of sayd, which is for hunting. So that concern that dogs are not to be sold except for those that are for hunting purpose. So we'll discuss concerning hadith regarding takhrij or what have been said by the ulama pertaining to this particular hadith. As for the hadith regarding the books of that have done some work around the book of Bulugh Maram by way of takhrij and checking of the hadith and editing of this hadith, that when they state this hadith, that this checking concerning of Sheikh Dr. Samir Ibn Amin Zuhairi rahimahullah in his check-in that he mentioned regarding concerning when he mentioned hadith, he mentioned that Sahih Muslim, and he mentioned the hadith is mentioned number of the hadith number in Sahih Muslim. Then he mentioned concerning Sinnur, would have mentioned here Awqit, that what is meant by Sinnur, that is meant by a qit or a here, which is a cat. So what is intended by Sinnur is a cat or a cat. Then I mentioned that they mentioned next concern the hadith, the next one said An-Nasa'i wazada, that also Nasa'i rahimahullah mentioned his hadith in his Sunan, where he mentioned, or that he mentioned zada with the extra wording illa kalb sayd. So he mentioned as for that narration of An-Nasa'i, that he mentioned that shadh rawahu Nasa'i. So shadh is where that the ulama of hadith have stated concerning that a narrator who's trustworthy, that he has gone contrary to other narrators who are equally or more trustworthy. So shadh, in summary, when the word shadh is used in hadith, then indicating that some form of irregularity have occurred regarding the hadith. And in this case, regarding the irregularity in this hadith is regarding concerning that one of the narrator that have said or mentioned something that others did not mention, even though that narrator may be one who's credible, even though the narrator may himself be credible and trustworthy, and a person said to be thiqah, but in this case is going against others who are equally trustworthy as he is, or they're above him, so, or more in number. So they mentioned that Ashadh, Rawahu Nasa'i, and they mentioned concerning the hadith placed in the book. They mentioned وقال في موت أول. Then also Nasa'i rahimahullah mentioned hadith in several places in his book. They mentioned in the first place, when he mentioned the hadith, he mentioned ليس بصحيح, that Nasa'i mentioned the hadith, and after he mentioned the hadith, he says ليس بصحيح. Then he mentioned قال في ثاني. The second time that he mentioned the hadith, he says munkar. The hadith is munkar, also indicating the hadith of some weakness. The word shadh and the word munkar indicating that there's an error that occurred. So munkar wal shadh indicating the hadith that it has some error, and also regarding munkar wal shadh also indicated it is considered to be, it is class of a hadith, or that wording or a hadith is said to be da'if. So it is class of those things that are said to be da'if. So shadh, as we'll explain concerning that, that additional wording of Nasa'i, when I mention except a hunting dog, then that is shadh. That is shadh. That is da'if, is said to be weak in the hadith. So that's concerning that Zuhairi in his checking. Then as for comparing with another, or what is stated, this one is by Sheikh Mahir Yasin Fahal, from the Mashaykh from Iraq, that did a check-in and editing of the book Bulugh Maram. When he stated, when he mentioned the hadith, then he mentioned the hadith of an Abi Zabir, then he mentioned the hadith to the end concerning Rawahu Muslim والنسائي وزاد يعني زاد نسائي إلا كلب Said. He mentioned that this being number 2 and number 3. So I mentioned Sahih. Then I mentioned, because the akhrajahu, I mean concerning hadith, as mentioned by Imam Muslim, that he mentioned the hadith is collected by, mentioned Ibn Abi Shayba. So his hadith can be found in the Musnad of Ibn Abi Shayba. Also Ahmed in his Musnad. So this hadith also is found with Ahmed in the Musnad. Also he mentioned Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Abu Yala, Ibn Jarud, Ibn Hibban, Al-Hakim, Wal-Bayhaqi. So of those other sources who have mentioned this hadith, other than Sahih Muslim, that he mentioned, the hadith is in Ibn Abi Shayba in his Musannif, Ahmed in his Musnad, also the hadith in the Muslim, also the hadith can be found in Abu Dawood in his Sunan, also At-Tirmidhi in his Al-Jami', also Abu Ya'la, and also Ibn Jarud, and also Ibn Hibban wal-Hakim. So those are, and also Bayhaqi. So these are the different sources that have mentioned hadith other than Imam Muslim rahimahullah. Then when he commented regarding concerning the third point, regarding concerning the other point regarding the addition that is mentioned by Imam An-Nasa'i. So the addition of Nasa'i, when he stated concerning except for a hunting dog, then he mentioned هذه زيادة ضعيفة, that this additional wording, exception by that is in An-Nasa'i, he mentioned it is هذه الزيادة ضعيفة. قال النسائي ليس بصحيح, that Nasa'i rahimahullah, he said that it is not sahih, meaning هذه زيادة, meaning this extra wording, additional wording, that Nasa'i rahimahullah graded as being something which is not sahih. And also he had mentioned again in his book munkar, that is also something which is an error. So those are concerning that regarding concerning what had been stated regarding concerning this matter, when Nasa'i rahimahullah mentioned munkar, that he mentioned laysa bi sahih, and also he said next that is munkar. Then he mentioned concerns that and also other sources, also that hadith that is narrated with Nasa'i with this additional wording regarding illa kalb said, except with a hunting dog. Also it can be sourced in other sources of the books of hadith. So you have akhrajahu, we mentioned, and Nasa'i in 2 places in his book, or mentioned by Nasa'i in his Sunan. Also Tahawi, so At-Tahawi also narrate this hadith in his Sharh al-Mushkil, also Ad-Daraqutni, and also Al-Bayhaqi. So Ad-Daraqutni and also Bayhaqi. So you have other sources I've mentioned. So those are other sources that this hadith can be found by Muslim, and those other sources that have also narrate that hadith other than Muslim, and also this extra wording that is mentioned by An-Nasa'i, that you find that other books of hadith also have mentioned it, and he cited some of these additional sources. So that's concerning. So it shows concern that extra narration or those extra sources mentioning this particular hadith. Then as for the third, that regarding concerning of those who have done some work on the book of Bulugh al-Maram by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, then we mentioned concerning that this is the one by Hallaq rahimahullah. So Hallaq, that he died of recent past. Then he mentioned when he stated this hadith of an Abi Zubair, قال سألت جابر الحديث. Then he mentioned regarding concerning that أخرجه, he mentioned أخرجه مسلم في صحيح نسائي في السنن, and he mentioned وقال هذا منكر, that also Nasa'i mentioned that is something which is munkar. Then he stated regarding, so that's concerning the two main sources that mentioned the hadith as in line with that of Ibn Hajar. So he mentioned first the sources is somewhat coincide with that which is mentioned by Ibn Hajar. Then he mentioned in additional to this mention qultu, this now is additional sources that were not mentioned by Ibn Hajar. So these are additional sources meaning concerning books of hadith that have mentioned this hadith. He mentioned qultu akhrajahu, meaning concerning hadith can be found in Abu Dawood, and he mentioned the hadith by its number and the book at-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah and Ahmed. So he mentioned that these other sources, that it would be Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah and also Ahmed. So all those of sources also have mentioned the hadith based upon what have been mentioned here by Sheikh Hallaq. So those are just concerning that, as we mentioned, concerning a part of the takhrij of the hadith, regarding knowing concerning the source of hadith that I've mentioned, this particular hadith, and also the aqwal of the ulama on this hadith. So from what have been cited that the likes of An-Nasa'i regarding concerning have commented on this hadith regarding of the additional wording, that exception regarding illa kalb sayd, regarding concern the exception of kalb sayd, and that is that part of the hadith, it is weak. That part of the hadith, it is weak. Then I mentioned regarding concerning others who have all the hadith to be weak, concerning Ahmed ibn Hanbal also weaken that extra wording, also An-Nawawi and also As-Suyuti. And also they mentioned نقل اتفاق المحدثين على ذلك, whereof that they have mentioned that there's an agreement, an ijma, an agreement, ittifaq, between the ulama of hadith regarding the weakness of this additional wording. So regarding this additional wording, that ulama of hadith, that they're in agreement regarding, it is weak. So as for that is mentioned regarding, because that's concerning the hadith, that so the next matter, so from the hadith is authentic, but with this exception regarding making stating placing an exception regarding that to al-kalb dog, hunting dog, then that is weak. That is stated, that is considered to be a weak narration. As for concerning the next matter regarding concerning the narrator of hadith, so we have concerning an Abi Zubair قال سألت جابر عن ثمن السنور. So as for concerning that one, the Sahabi here is Jabir, so it is Jabir ibn Abdullah ibn Amr Haram, and we have mentioned regarding Jabir before. So I mentioned some, we have discussed in brief regarding Jabir before, so we have stated matters pertaining Jabir before, so there is no need to repeat this. Then I mentioned concerning, and that I mentioned also the person who narrated upon Jabir, who was asking Jabir, I mentioned an Abi Zubair. So an Abi Zubair قال سألت جابر. So one, an Abi Zubair from the Tabi'een. So Abu Zubair, that Abu Zubair is Muhammad ibn Muslim. So Abu Zubair who's asking the question, posing the question to Jabir. So this, so Abu Zubair is Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Tadrus. Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Tadrus al-Qurashi al-Asadi. Any of those that you have narrated upon Jabir, so you find that the hadith of Jabir can be found in Kutub al-Sittah, and also a bit of Abu Zubair al-Makki, also that is a hadith also can be found in Kutub al-Sittah. So his hadith can be found in Kutub al-Sittah, but from amongst the Tabi'een, So when one checks regarding the hadith, then we'll find concern that the person who narrates upon him, Sahih Muslim, will call a person called Ma'aqil ibn Ubaydullah al-Jazari. So he narrates upon Abu Zubair. So in checking concerning to identify who's Abu Zubair, then we took concern the person who narrates upon, who's Jabir, and also check the person who that narrates upon him, the person before him, who's they mentioned Ma'qil ibn Ubaidullah al-Jazari. So and Jazari also his hadith is found in Sahih Muslim and also in An-Nasa'i. So overall, regarding concerning that, as mentioned, the hadith is authentic. Regarding concerning what is regarding concern, as mentioned regarding concerning, as for Jabir, we have spoken about him before, so we need not to go to repeat regarding matters concerning Jabir much. So it was, as we mentioned, it was Jabir ibn Abdullah ibn Amr al-Haram. So that's concerning Jabir. As for the mufradat of this, the word, the meaning of the hadith. So the hadith concerning, mentioned concerning that Jabir, was concerning Abu Zubair, that he asked Jabir ibn Abdullah anhu regarding concerning Anthaman, Sinur, wal Kalb, that he asked concerning that the earnings, Athaman, regarding the earnings, indicating concerning the person buying and selling of these type of things. Then they mentioned that as for Sinur, that the ulama mentioned concerning Sinur, that this is concerning Al-Qit wa Hirra, which is a cat or kitten, and it mentioned Al-Kalb, which is concerning a dog. That he mentioned that as are we allowed to go into a business transaction regarding these things concerning the buying and selling of this, and also taking off the earnings. For call Zat Nabi Islam and Tariq. Then he mentioned that the Jabir mentioned that the Prophet Islam that he forbade this, that he forbid such things. So that's concerning the hadith regarding the meaning. So as for what they mentioned regarding concerning the Prophet Islam, Zajr and Dhalik, so Zajr is concerned that manaha. So Zajr mean that Islam that he forbade that this type of transaction to be done, or earnings of this type to be halal. So that's concerning what is intended. So as Zajr meaning concerning that naha, that something is forbidden, or manaha, that he forbids. So as Zajr also used to indicate that something is haram. So Zajr is a term that also to indicate that something is haram, manaha or naha. So that's concerning as Zajr. They mentioned for amrahu, so where the person is that is commanded, one is being commanded, kaf'an ba'i, where the person is being prohibited from the sale of such things. And of these concerns such regarding concerning kitten and also a cat, and that of a dog. So one is forbidden to benefit from this. Or the sale and purchase of this was said regarding concerning for the purpose of hunting, So that's concerning the meaning of the hadith. So that's the meaning of the hadith. As for what can be taken from the hadith, so you find that Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah, regarding concerning that this hadith, Al-Bayhaqi also that before this also Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, Sheikh Abdullah bin Saleh al-Fawzan, that regarding concerning the hadith that he mentioned that is narrated by An-Nasa'i, that he mentioned regarding wal hadith illatun ukhra. So also of those things that he mentioned regarding the hadith that is mentioned by An-Nasa'i regarding concerning this exception, regarding that given an exception indicating that one can sell or and buy Kalb Said, hunting dogs. He mentioned regarding fil hadith illatun ukhra. There's also another illa that criticism of the hadith. They mention وهي أنه قد اختلف على حماد ibn Salama. Also there's a difference regarding Hamad ibn Salama في رف هذا حديث ووقفي. We're concerning that there's a discussion between the ulama regarding that Hamad ibn Salama, that in some narration the hadith is raised up to the Prophet ﷺ, goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, and some narration of the hadith that is the statement of Jabir, is the statement of Jabir. So you have that difference also between the ulama regarding the narration of An-Nasa'i. So that they mentioned that rawahu Waqi' and Hamad and Jabir mawqufan. So the narration of Waqi' ibn Jarrah and Hamad ibn Salama and Jabir ibn Abdullah they mention that narration is mawquf, meaning it is a statement of Jabir. The hadith goes back to Jabir ibn Abdullah, and not the statement of the Prophet alayhi salam. Then I mention Rawahu Haytham ibn Jamil wal Akharun and Hamad marfuhan, and also find others amongst them Haytham ibn Jamil and others, and Hamad, other group that narrate upon Hamad marfu'an, also upon Jabir, that marfu'an, that so you have those two narrations. And Darakutni rahimahullah, that Rajaha Darakutni al-Waqf. Darakutni rahimahullah, that is more inclined that the hadith of in Nasa'i, that is the statement of Jabir, not that of the Prophet Islam, regarding even with this, that the hadith goes back to the Jabir, not to the Prophet Islam. So that's also another matter that is highlighted. And also Bayhaqi rahimahullah mentioned a hadith al-Sahah, and Nabi Sallam fi nahi an thaman al-kalb khali min hadi istisna. That regarding concern that any istisna, that regarding that the dog, all of this is not authentic. So the authentic ones are the ones that without istisna, without any form of exception regarding the hunting dog being allowed. So that's concerning that particular matter. Then also regarding concerning the hadith, that and so from this of those discussion that goes into the hadith, that you find a group amongst the ulama that have discussed concerning that we had mentioned before regarding that the permissibility, is it allowed? What's the ruling regarding the sale of dogs? What's the ruling regarding the sales of dogs? And we discussed before that that from the hadith that I've mentioned that previously, and this hadith that it is not allowed. It is not allowed regarding thaman al-kalb. So the sale and the purchase of dogs, that is something which is not allowed. But then some mention an exemption. So some of the ulama that they mentioned that generally that dogs are not allowed to be sold or to be purchased. So buying and selling of dogs are not allowed. But they mentioned with the exception regarding kalb as-sayd. And those who have that view, they use this hadith as their proof. They use hadith of Jabir regarding concerning narration of Nasa'i, that makes an exception regarding the hunting dog, but that narration, it is daif. So that kind of somewhat that weaken their view based upon the hadith that they use. It is weak regarding that it is allowed to sell and to buy hunting dogs. But we mentioned that ziyada, it is not authentic. Also from the hadith that it discussed regarding concern is the evidence regarding tahrim thaman as-sinur. Also concerning thaman as-sinur, that sinur, that also this is forbidden. So also concerning which is sinur, which mentioned which is cat, that also the sale and the purchase of cat, it is something which is not allowed. It is something which is not allowed because it mentioned thaman as-sinur. So based upon this, it is not allowed. As we also said before, that some of the ulama that the ulama cat can be sold, and that's the view that is taken by the jumhur of the ulama. So jumhur of the ulama that they're more in line regarding concern that cats can be sold, and they mentioned that and this concern the jumhur of the ulama is of this view, and also the madhab in the Hanabila, and also from the madhab of the Hanabila is also that cats can be sold. And still concern the qawl of Khiraki in his Muqtasar, that also is of that view. So Khiraki in his Muqtasar, that also that of the Hanabila who also inclined towards that it's allowed regarding the selling and buying of cats. And they kind of somewhat also use regarding the reason that also they said no fi manfa, that is a benefit. So based upon that benefit that they mentioned is a benefit, so based upon this benefit then it can be sold. So it can be something that to be sold because there's a benefit that can be gained or reaped from this from the cat. So based upon this it can be sold. So that's concerning, but and then also we find that the ulama, others who use the hadith and others like this regarding that that it is not allowed regarding the sale or the purchase of cats, and so that's concerning and they use their this is concerning the hadith of Jabir Abdullah is of their proof regarding this particular matter, and also of those from the Sahaba who add this view that is not allowed the sale and the purchase of cats. That concerns the view of Jabir ibn Abdullah, also the view of Abu Hurairah, and also from the ulama of the Salaf, Ta'us, Mujahid, and also a narration of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So a narration and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and also it's a view of Abu Bakr, also a view of Ibn Qayyim, and also Ibn Rajab of the Hanabila. So you find that also of those who take the position that is not allowed the sale and purchase of cats, as we mentioned, amongst the Sahaba, Jabir, Abu Hurairah, also of those who came out from the Salaf, we mentioned Ta'awus ul Mujahid, then also a narration on Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, then also of those who came after, we find the likes of Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi, and also is the view that is taken by Ibn Rajab rahimahullah jami'an. So those of the ulama who hold take the position that it is not allowed the sale of cats. So that's concerning that matter concerning that discussion regarding this particular discussion regarding the sale of these type of animals, that it is not allowed regarding the sale of these animals. So as we mentioned regarding concern that also concerned that also the same thing that Sheikh Bassam in his explanation that when he discussed this hadith in Ishar of Tawdi Ahkam min Bulugh al-Maram. So this is the Sheikh of Sheikh al-Bassam that when he mentioned regarding concern as for this matter that he mentioned regarding based upon this ziyada that is mentioned by Nasa'i that even though it is weak, but some of the ulama can somewhat use it to justify or use to say that it is allowed regarding the sale of dogs, of hunting dogs. But as we mentioned that they mention ومن أجل ذلك الزيادة اختلف العلماء في جواز بيعه. We concern that's not meaning that the discussion between the ulama regarding in particular regarding is it allowed. So all dogs are not allowed to be sold, but some made an exception regarding concern because of this ziyada, this extra wording that makes an exception regarding hunting dogs. Then I found a discussion between the ulama regarding is it allowed, what's the rule regarding the sale of hunting dogs. Then he mentioned ذهب جمهور ومنهم إمامين الشافعي وأحمد في تحريم بيع, that Imam Ahmed and also Imam Shafi rahimahullah are of the position of the view that it is not allowed to sell regarding hunting dogs in particular. So from amongst the dogs, hunting dogs in particular, that they are of the view that it is إلى تحريم بيع, that is not allowed the sale of hunting dogs. So whether this dog, it is used for seed or is used for the farm or for the animals. So any form of dog that are used for any form of benefit regarding on the farm or on the fields or for hunting, then all of these, the same right there, not allowed to be sold, nor or to be purchased. So that's concerning their position. So they mentioned that these dogs, that they can be used and benefited from regarding for the purpose of hunting, concerning helping on the farms with the animals and the like, that those dogs can be used because of their serving a certain benefit, but also that they are not allowed to be sold and to be purchased. They are not allowed to be sold and their thaman to be taken there. That I mentioned لأن الأصل في نهي أنه لتحريم. Why? Because the asl for tahrim is that it is something which is forbidden. So if something is forbidden, then it means that the hukum that is taken from this, it is something which is haram to be done. Then I mentioned that Al-Khattabi, and of Khattabi that he mentions, that of the ulama, قال Khattabi, جواز الانتفاع بشيء إذا كان لأجل الضرورة. لم So he mentioned that not that because of there's Al-Khattabi mentioned some of the ulama have taken a position that if there's a benefit that can be gained for a reason because of a certain circumstance, then I mentioned then that thing that it can be sold, So so they mentioned because of this, then it can be sold because of a certain benefit that is needed. So based upon this, it can be sold. So that's concerning the view that they have taken regarding this particular matter. And concerning that ذهب أبو حنيفة إلى جواز بيعه, يعني that Abu Hanifa rahimahullah that have taken a position that concerning that hunting dogs that it can be sold, whether they are that are those one that is allowed to be benefited from or otherwise. So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah mutlaqa, as I mentioned concerning that yajuz, it is allowed to be sold in general, whether there's a benefit that can be gained or no benefit, that they can be sold regarding dogs. So that's concerning hunting dogs. So that's concerning this particular matter that is discussed. You find concerning other ulama that Ata ibn Abi Rabah wa Ibrahim an-Nakhai, that they take the position regarding a third position that they all concerning ما يبيع من الكلاب فبيعه جاهز. So what is allowed to be benefited from and can be used, then those one is allowed for them to be sold. So those type of dogs that one can benefit from regarding that for the purpose of guarding, for the purpose of looking after the farm by way of guarding, and also the animals, or by way of hunting. Ibrahim an-Nakhai and Ata ibn Rabah, they take the position that those type of dogs can be sold. Those ones that are benefit, that they can be used for legitimate reasons and for lawful reasons, then those type of dogs can be sold. Then they mention وَمَا حَرَّمَ اِقْتِنَاؤُهُ, and those ones that are not allowed, that you can benefit from or to use them, بَيْعُهُ haram. Those ones, it is not allowed for them to be sold. So dogs that are not being used for those exceptions that are mentioned by the Sharia, then they are being kept for example, for the person using them for just to have as a pet. Then those type of dogs is not allowed for them to be sold. So they make an exception regarding those ones that some benefit, some allowance is given regarding them being used, and those ones that are outside this is not allowed. So those ones can be sold. Other than this, they're not allowed to be sold. That's concerning the view of some of the ulama and among some of the Salaf regarding of the ulama of the past, Ata ibn Abi Rabah and also Ibrahim an-Nakhai alayhim rahmatullah. So that's concerning the discussion regarding the ulama pertaining to this particular matter, and the matter regarding in this hadith regarding that mentioned regarding the permissibility or the ruling regarding dogs in general and dogs in specific regarding those for huntings, and also regarding cats. So from this hadith it shows us now that these animals that they are not allowed to be sold are not allowed to be sold. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, that we have discussed concerning this particular hadith that covers concerning this particular matter. So from the hadith by extension, from the hadith regarding concerning of cats, that is something that one can benefit from or can use or can keep as a pet. So concerning, but one is not allowed to buy and sell regarding concerning or to trade with cats, but one can keep them as a pet. So having a cat as a pet is something which is allowed, and also for a person not to treat a cat poorly. So not to treat a cat and to wrong and not to treat to mistreat a cat, then it's something that one should be mindful of. So this is something that one should be mindful of, as in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ regarding concerning mistreatment of even animals. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ regarding concerning a lady that had a cat, regarding concerning imratan dakhalat an-nar fi hirra, that a lady that she entered an-nar because of a hirra, habasatha, where she somewhat kept that cat and locked the cat away, regarding concerning but without ta'am, without per se a ta'am, and so eventually the cat died. And so based upon this, it showed that that a person who mistreat an animal, then I mentioned that دخلت إن إبرة دخلت النار من أجل حرة, that she entered a nar because of a cat, because she did not did not leave the cat with any form of food or provide. She locked the cat away and did not per se provide food for the cat. And so the cat, it died. So because of this, she entered a nar. So it shows concern that it's a serious matter where a person mistreat an animal by way of starving them or mistreating them by hitting or physically abusing them. All this is something which is haram. So the Muslim should be mindful of this. But overall, regarding concerning that, it is allowed regarding the person that keeping a cat is allowed. As for keeping a dog, as we had mentioned, as states in concern, that the exception is made regarding in certain cases. Regarding having a dog, it should be for a purpose allowed in the Sharia, and those purposes that are allowed in the Sharia is regarding that one for hunting, mashi, regarding a farm or zara, or the farm or for the animals. So for those reasons, it can be done. Also, another regarding the ulama mentioned regarding after for dog for regarding as a guide dog that are trained. So those type of animals that for those purpose, they can be kept or for guarding purposes, for watching, for guard purpose. Then for those reasons, animals can be, a dog can be kept outside this as a means to have the dog as a pet that's kept inside the house, that is walked and he sleep in the bed or with the family or sleep wherever in the house. Then it's something that not to be done. Then it's something not to be done. So that in short, so that's concerning matters pertaining to this hadith that we have covered today regarding. So the hadith is discussing concerning of those type of business transaction which is manhihan. Those type of business transaction which is forbidden, which is a transaction that include regarding the selling and buying of cats and also that of dogs. So they are not allowed to be sold regarding, so they're not allowed to be sold, nor for them to be bought. So with this, inshallah ta'ala, we'll end the discussion and we'll continue regarding the hadith that follows regarding other matters pertaining to shurut, regarding concerning al-bab al-buyu, as mentioned here, shurut al-bay, and also those action which is manhi'an, and those actions regarding transaction that are forbidden. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخر دعونا الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.